Coming up on Empower with Tristan Canfor-Dumas.
My dad, I'll never forget this, sat me down on the porch outside our house, on the back porch, and said, "Well, Jeff, we're selling the company. I don't want to, but we're selling it. And you're not going to have a job anymore." I remember hating that feeling of being just pushed around. And it didn't matter how well I was doing at the job or at work. I was a number on a spreadsheet somewhere, and I didn't matter anymore. I said to myself, you know what? I never want to feel like that again. And if I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail. But if I'm going to win, I'm going to win. But it's up to me. So when these things that I was trying didn't work over that course of 10 plus years, I didn't just give up and say, well, I don't know, I'm going to go get a job. It almost intrigued me more, I think.
Hello. Welcome back to today's show. Listen, this is something new for all of us. It's an amazing opportunity. Listen, we got someone special right here. And before I even get into all this stuff, y'all just got to sit back, relax, enjoy, but most importantly, take notes. Okay, Jeff, welcome to Empower. How's the day been? How's the week been?
So far, so good. It's good to see you, Tristan.
Yes. It is good to see you. We have been we've been planning this for a cool minute, since funny story. Well, not really funny story. We began our interaction when Jeff came to speak at one of my classes that I was taking. And from the conversation, I was like, low key, this guy would be amazing to come on this show because, we are filled with entrepreneurs and young people who trying to make a difference in the world. And I felt like Jeff's story and his perspective would be something that would really, really benefit us. So I'm not going to say too much about Jeff. I'm going to let Jeff introduce himself. But before you do introduce yourself, well, this will kind of be inside the introduction. The first question I ask all my guests when they come on the show, it's a very simple question, but people got so many different answers for it. So the first question I have for you is, who is Jeff?
Man, that's a deep question to start with, Tristan. I would say that, well, it depends in what context. So I would say that I am focused on family, passionate, interested in many things. Business is fascinating to me. Music is fascinating to me. Learning new things is fascinating to me. So multifaceted, I would say. And also right now in this stage of life, I would also say Jeff is transitioning or in a transition. And we can define that in all kinds of different ways, but it feels transitional and also exciting about what's ahead for me.
Okay. Y'all, listen, Jeff got an interesting story. And not even an interesting story. This story is crazy. When I heard it, I was like, whoa, low key. That's not even low key, high key. And that's the blueprint right there. So, Jeff, please tell us your story.
Sure. So in what context? In a business sense? In an
We
entrepreneur
gotta know the
sense?
business sense from
Okay.
when you left university, what it is that you was doing from. Okay, let me not even transport it. Yeah, you understand what I'm saying.
I gotcha. All right. So I'll do the quick version of it. So I graduated in 2000, got my pilot's license in 2001 while I was still at school. Still a pilot, still fly around. Didn't expect to do anything entrepreneurial. So I was working part-time while I was going to school for a big insurance company that my dad worked for his entire career. And they offered me a job when I graduated. And I didn't expect to work there, but I went there to work. And I actually worked for my dad at an insurance agency that was owned by this bigger company. And was there for a couple of years and loved it. Moved to Boston and lived in Boston for a couple of years and was doing great. I worked hard. I stayed late. I worked weekends. I was always in the top performing categories and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, all right, I guess this is what I'm doing now. I'll be here the rest of my career until my dad, I'll never forget this, sat me down on the porch outside our house on the back porch and said, well, Jeff, we're selling the company. I don't want to, but we're selling it. And you're not going to have a job anymore. I was like, whoa, I was not expecting this to happen. So then I was unemployed. I collected unemployment, didn't know what I was going to do. I remember hating that feeling of being just pushed around. And it didn't matter how well I was doing at the job or at work. I was a number on a spreadsheet somewhere and I didn't matter anymore. And that was a really hard lesson to learn at the time. It ended up being the best thing to happen to me. I didn't realize it at the time. And eventually found a job at a small software company for a couple of years. That wasn't a great fit for me. But while I was there, I built what became the world's first mobile scavenger hunt game played with cell phone cameras. It was called iSpot, ISPOTT. And this is before iPhones and before apps and all the things that we have today. It was a little bit before its time, actually, looking back on it. But Microsoft found it. I put it out there after working on it for many months, just nights and weekends. And Microsoft found it and they reached out and they said, "Hey, we found this thing. We want to use it for a big campaign with Microsoft and Sprite." Sprite was rebranding everything at that time, mid 2000s. And I said, "All right, let's do it." So I put in my 2 weeks notice, left the full-time job, went all in on that, ran the very successful campaign with Microsoft and Sprite. Eventually that kind of ran its course for all kinds of reasons. And we can get into the nooks and crannies of this if you want to, Tristan. I'm totally open about it. But eventually it kind of ran its course and it didn't work out like I was thinking, even though we had this kind of, we came out of the gates hot and we were like, wow, okay, cool. And we had all this interest, but I couldn't figure out how to make it go much past that. So was kind of scrambling again and was just building websites for friends and former colleagues that I used to work with. And that was my job basically. And I was doing that for many years and wasn't really growing it necessarily. It was paying the bills enough. I was putting gas in the tank and paying the mortgage or the rent or whatever. But it started to get frustrating. And eventually, after many years of doing this for all kinds of just random companies, we weren't special. When I say we, it was really me. I wasn't specializing in anything. I was taking any work I could possibly get to pay the bills. And eventually had a couple of subcontractors to help me out, met some really great people in that realm. And then eventually we sat down and said, all right, we're frustrated. How do we make a platform? How do we scale something better? And we went off site for a day and we sat down and we created a website platform doing what we were doing in the past. We just said, this is a platform now. Let's actually make it feel like a platform so that we can scale it better. And we did it for insurance agencies. And there were 37,000 insurance agencies in the country. That was our market. And built that thing. And then a week or two later, I'll never forget it, I got a call from an insurance agency in the middle of Pennsylvania. And they said, "Hey, we have $5,000 for the year for our website, for our marketing, for our social media, for all this stuff." And I'll never forget. I said, "Well, we can't do anything for $5,000 because we were charging $10,000, $20,000 at that point. So in the past, I'd have to say, no, this isn't going to fit." However, on this call, I said, "All right, yeah, we have a platform called Active Agency and it's $250 a month. Does that sound good?" He's like, "Oh yeah, sign us up." I was like, "Oh, all right. Yeah, we'll sign you right up, sir." So I hung up. I was like, I don't even know what to send them. We don't have a contract. We don't have a proposal. We don't even know how to bill it the right way in QuickBooks. None of that stuff was set up, but we figured it out. And they became one of our first clients. And then from there, the thing snowballed. And eventually, after 5, 6 years of scaling it and growing it, the company was acquired in July of 2022. So that's kind of like a quick way of encapsulating decades of a career.
Wow, 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 wow. This, like, when I heard it the first time, I was like, yo, this guy's like, that's the entrepreneur, like, jackpot, like, low key, just building something that's so amazing and creating a system. I think that was the thing that we spoke about the most when you came to speak at in the class, was talking about building that system. And before we even talk about building the system and how you went about it, one thing that stood out to me in what you just said was the fact that you said yes, and then you found a way around it, around making it such that it's gonna, like, creating something. A lot of times I've noticed it that we tend to, like, limit ourselves based on the opportunities that are around us. We'll be like, it's not set up yet, or, oh, I haven't planned this yet, or, oh, this and that. what's very funny, full disclosure, when I sent you the message about scheduling a podcast, I ain't never do no podcast online. Never done that before. But I was like, let's do it. You free on this day? We gonna run it. And I just told myself, kind of the same thing what you just said is we're gonna figure it out. I know I'll figure it out by then. It's just like saying yes first and then figuring it out. Trying to
Yeah.
get that action, trying to make sure that like you're kind of forcing yourself into action. So yeah, I definitely see that. But going into the business, that's something that I think I want to focus on because we ain't got too much time today, you know. But
Yeah.
we want to focus on the business. What was it that kind of tipped you off as to this could potentially be something?
So we were already doing work in the insurance industry. Because remember, my career started working for that big insurance company. So I had some friends in that circle already. Some of them left that company when it was sold and started their own insurance agencies and things like that. So I was playing around in that world for a little while. And honestly, I tried everything to not do something in that industry. I was like, no, it's insurance. I don't know, it's boring. Like I want to do something with airplanes or like boats or just like something cool, you know? And I tried so many different things that ended up failing along the way. But yeah, I resisted it for a long time. But after being frustrated for many, many, many years, I'm like, I don't know what else to do here. What else can I possibly try? I said, well, we're doing the most work we're doing is in the insurance industry. So why don't we just take a stab at that? There's a lot in the industry that's very legacy and stagnant and boring, and innovation has stalled. There's an appetite here in the industry. I could sense it. There were some of these insurance agencies that were run by the mom or the dad, and then they were transitioning out. So you had this new generation coming in, and this new generation was looking for new stuff. They cared about what the website looked like. They cared about the sales tools and the servicing tools. They wanted to deliver a better experience for their clients. But there was really nothing on the market that like fit that bill. It was all old stuff and it was just
Yeah.
boring. So we looked at that and said, all right, well, we can pretty confidently say that we can do it better because we already were. We were just doing it one off, like these big projects.
Mm.
So instead of these big projects, the idea was let's do the same thing, except make it a platform and then build it up gradually over time so it becomes this powerhouse of a thing and just make it so that it's highly customizable. We can make it look and feel different for every client that we bring on. It's not like a template or anything like that. But then we can build sales tools into it, servicing tools into it. We can do all kinds of things at that point. And instead of charging $10,000, $20,000, we'll just charge $250 a month. So then it opens up our market. So that was the theory. And if nothing else, we literally spent one day off site. All right, so we lost the day. If it didn't work out, we lost the day. All these other failures, quote unquote, that I had, these business failures that I was trying different things and these swings for the fences, as I would call them, I spent so much more time than a day on these things. And those things didn't work out. So I'm like, all right, we'll just go off site. We'll have lunch somewhere. It'll be fun. We'll just hang out and we'll try this thing. So it's very low risk. But when we first start getting some of the initial interest, it was like, oh, maybe there's something here. Maybe there's something here. And then on our website, on the Forge 3, the name of the company was Forge 3, Forge, the number 3. So on the Forge 3 website, I put 30 empty slots and I called them launch partner slots. And it didn't really mean anything other than it created this sense of urgency, like, oh, I want to get in. I want to get in. I want to be a launch partner, like whatever that means, right? And within a couple of months, all 30 were full. And
Wow.
then you start doing the math. I'm like, all right, well, if one client is $250 a month, times that by 12, that's $3,000 a year. So now you do $3,000 a year times 30. And I'm like, whoa, I could hire somebody all of a sudden. And I can predict that that revenue is going to come in every year. And that was just for the first 30. What if I had another 30? What if I had 300? What if we had 1,000, right? And then you start doing the math on that. And then it's like, oh, all right, I think we can do something here. And sure enough, that's exactly what ended up happening. as things really, the momentum built up and we just kind of held on for dear life and tried to keep up with it.
There's something about your story that I really want to get across to the people that are listening and watching. How long from the deal that you did with Microsoft till this company, till Forge 3, how long were you working at and swinging for the fences?
Way longer than I thought it would ever take. So, Forge 3 was founded in May of 2004. And that was around the time iSpot and the Microsoft thing happened.
Okay.
And it sold in July of 2022.
Wow.
So 2022 minus 2004 is the number of years. It's 18 years and 2 months.
Wow. So it was 18 years that you spent working on the next big thing or working on that great idea. And after
Yeah.
about 18, you said you were, how long was it from when it took off to when you sold?
So that was about 5, 6 years,
Six
something like
years.
that. Yeah, that really happened in, I think that was 2016 or so,
Okay.
is when we really started to gain initial traction. And then the acquisition closed July of 22. So yeah, it was like six
So about
years,
six
something like
years.
that. And what's interesting is, and this was always the frustrating thing for me. So like at the beginning of the year, my accountant would always say, "How much are you going to make next year, Jeff?" Like to plan ahead. And I had no idea what to tell him for many years. For a decade, I had no clue. I was like, I don't know. I can make zero, or I can make like a billion. I really have no clue what it's going to be. And when I looked at the revenue year over year, it was just a flat line for over a decade. And then when this platform idea came to be, then immediately you see this hockey stick thing, and it just shot straight up to the right, for 5 or 6 years, and then sold it.
Wow. Wow. So like the takeoff was so drastic, but there was still a period before the takeoff where it felt like it was just kind of preparation, like going through the motions, practicing and just perfecting your craft and understanding your market a bit better. I think that's kind of what how I see it. I don't know if that is that accurate?
Yeah, it wasn't planned that way, but yeah, it just as it turned out, looking back on it, it just took that long for me to figure it out.
Hmm.
And again, during that time frame, there were a lot of things that I tried. I tried other software products and created them and spent all this time and energy and money trying to create things and tried to take it to market, and then it would just fizzle out. And just and I was like, oh man, now what do I do? So there were a lot of these like starts and stops, and that just when you add it up, it just took a bunch of time. And before I knew it, you look up, you're like, that was 10 years
Wow.
that took.
Wow.
And I was always doing the web work as a baseline. So that
Okay.
was like paying the bills. It was a good lifestyle. Like I was doing all right. It just was frustrating in the sense that I like a challenge. Like the first question you asked me, like, who am I? I
Hmm.
like challenges. I like figuring things out. I like the game of business. It's a sport to me. And I was just interested in like, why can't I figure out how to make it grow more, you know? And that just fascinated me and it completely pulled me in. So when these things that I was trying didn't work over that course of 10 plus years, I didn't just give up and say, "Oh, I don't know, I'm going to go get a job." It almost intrigued me more, I think. And it was like, no, I can figure this out. I didn't figure it out yet, but I will. And then you look back and it's like, wow, that took 18 plus years of grinding away until there was like an exit or an acquisition. And then all of a sudden everyone's interested in it. Like, oh, we're interested in your story now because, oh, yeah, well, where were you the first 12 years where nothing was working, you know?
Yeah. Would you say it was worth it?
I like the way that it turned out, for a bunch of reasons. I actually like that I wish there's two angles to this. I wish that I would have figured it out sooner, sure, because we only have so much time in life. I would love to have figured it out sooner and then have more opportunity ahead to do different things. I have that now, you know. But yeah, of course, you wish you could figure it out sooner. It looks so simple in hindsight. Why didn't you just do this sooner? That was obvious, right? Well, it wasn't obvious to me. But
Definitely.
there is an element where I actually like that it the perseverance factor of this. is something that I'm proud of. It's like, why didn't I give up? Why didn't I just say, I can't do this? Um, I never thought that. I never said that to myself. So looking back on it as a perseverance story and a persistence, and I'm not going to give up, is something that I'm proud of. And the fact that it was bootstrapped, there was nobody else, there was no funding coming into it. It was done, it was just pure grit and pure grind and pure hustle and pure no quit. And when everyone else thought that it was stupid and it's not going to work, and what's he doing? Just do something different, man. Like you can't, you don't have it. You're not going to figure it out. It's like, all right, you know, you'll see, you'll see.
I
So I
love.
like that. I like that aspect of it, especially now working with startup companies and having conversations with folks like you and others. There's um, this misconception that if it's too hard, you're doing it wrong. And I just don't buy into that. Entrepreneurship is the most difficult way to make a living. You can you can kill it and be incredibly successful in all the ways. However you define success, you can do it. But it's also incredibly difficult. And there's going to be times where you look up and it's like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is really freaking hard. But that probably means that you're on the right track too. So when I'm talking to folks, it's like, yeah, dude, it's hard. That's what this is. It took me 18 plus years to do it. So like what, you're 6 months into this thing? All right, like check back in 17 years and let's see how you're doing. Keep doing it. Go. You'll figure it out. So I like that aspect of it. You know what I mean?
I
So it's
see.
a little bit of both
I
on
see, I
that.
see, I see. You see, what's so funny is that I was about to ask you well, a question. I feel like you low-key answered it, but I still want to ask you to just see maybe you got something else you want to add to it. Um, what is one thing that you see a lot of young entrepreneurs struggle with?
I think it's exactly that.
Mm.
I
Mhm.
think I think most companies fail because people give up prematurely.
Mm.
um, or or there's a lack of confidence, I think. And listen, I struggled with that just as much as anybody,
Yeah.
especially those early days. But there again, there has to be something in you that's just going to fight through that kind of stuff. It's going to get hard. It's going to be painful. Stuff's not going to work the way you think it's going to work. But that's when the character gets built. And what I've seen is a lot of times it's like, oh well, I don't know. It's man, this is so hard. Yeah, that's what you signed up for. So I think if a lot of founders and entrepreneurs realize that it really truly is not just lip service, but it truly is going to get really, really hard at times.
Yeah.
And you have to pivot, you have to adjust, you have to do different things by definition to survive. You're in survival mode. But if you get through that and get momentum, which I think is the biggest thing for any new company, is to get momentum built up. Then you can start to ride the momentum and it gets a little bit easier.
Mm.
But getting to that point and getting the confidence and the wind at your back kind of a thing is really tough. And I see a lot of people just give up and quit at that stage, which
Mm.
I think is premature.
I see. And with that, do you have any practical tips or insights into how somebody could overcome these type of negative thoughts about quitting and stopping what they're doing altogether?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's very personal. For me, I think one of the questions I get often is, why didn't you stop? Why didn't
Yeah.
you quit? Because it was almost 2 decades of getting just sucker punched, for a majority of it. Um, and that definitely plays with your soul and your ego and your pride and all that kind of stuff. It can
Hmm.
really beat you up. But I think for me personally, I was so against that feeling that I had when I was downsized, when I lost my job, not for anything that I did. It was just, we don't need you anymore. And that feeling was like, whoa, I didn't expect that. And I didn't like that. And I think at that point, subconsciously, I don't think I knew it at the time. I said to myself, you know what? I never want to feel like that again. And if I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail. But if I'm going to win, I'm going to win. But it's up to me. So that was my motivation. I think the motivation, and to answer you that question, it's really a personal one. Why are you doing it? Do you like the challenge? Do you just want the payday at the end if you're chasing the money? Is it just to is it to say that you can or to say that you did? Are you truly solving a problem that you're very passionate about? All of those things have different motivations attached to them,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So I think the answer to that is really personal and independent
Yeah.
because when the lights are out, you're in bed, you're staring up at the fan, and nobody else is thinking about your business. Nobody else cares. Nobody cares if you had a good business day, a bad business day. They don't care if you have money in the bank, if you have no money in the bank. They're not thinking about it when you are. That's that time where you have to latch on to whatever that motivation is and be like, I got it. I haven't figured it out yet, but I got it. Right. And then you kind of pull through and have some faith that you can get through that kind of stuff. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's very independent on
I
the
see.
person.
I see. You know, one thing that I see with your story is that I think you did mention it earlier that that you had a base with what you were doing, as well as still reaching for the stars and trying to start something. And so I think that's something that's also pretty important for a lot of us who are hearing you are listening. You see, yes, create the business, do what you got to do, but also sustain yourself. Have something that's there that you can still kind of have like that. I don't want to say you have that cushion because there's also this kind of train of thought of burning the boats. I don't know if you've heard about that.
Hmm.
It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
like it's succeed or it's die. Like that's what it is. So I don't know. For me personally, I think I'm just trying to figure out what situation or what tact. I feel like they could both benefit, but it's just like which one. I don't know if you see where I'm
Hmm.
going with this, but it's just like
Yeah.
trying to figure out between those two. What are your thoughts on those two train of thoughts?
Yeah. That's a good one. So the younger you are, the easier it is to take risks, right? So the answer might be a little bit different based on what you have to support. So if you have a family and you have a mortgage and you have kids and all this kind of stuff, you're like, all right, well, you're kind of like you have to do something to support all of that. So to just burn the boats or burn the bridges or whatever metaphor you want to use is really tricky in that way. Unless you have a big savings account and you're going to start depleting it, and then you're going to be stressed out, and so that's pretty tricky. For me, I got started with this before kids and everything. I have two kids now, 14 and 12. And so I had a little bit of flexibility at that point, but still had bills and rent and eventually mortgage and whatever, car insurance and all that kind of stuff. And for me, my personal take on it back then was, okay, I think I can do this. I can make enough money to replace my salary of what I was making. I can do that on my own. So that's what I did. So that was my first goal at that point. And then I was like, all right, well, I have that and I can kind of do that and it's not going to take all of my time. And now I have some of this extra time over here to come up with things and oh, that's an interesting idea. Let me try that. And to take these shots for the fences. Now you can make an argument, I don't know, you can't go back in time. You can make the argument that, well, if you were all in on something, maybe that would have worked out, that and it didn't work out, right? Like, I don't know. It's really hard to say. Um, and I never took funding, like I said, so it was bootstrapped. And it wasn't like this thought out strategic thing that I analyzed the pros and cons of. I just didn't know like, I don't know what I was doing. I was like, get funding for what? I don't know. Like I'm building websites, but I have like all these ideas, right? Like no one's going to give you money. You get friends and family money, but I just didn't know what I would do with the money even. So I kind of like accidentally backstepped my way into the way that it ended up working for me, which was baseline, bring in some revenue, take these little project shots, these swings for the fences, and don't take any money from anybody because I didn't know how or what to do with it. It seemed complicated to me. And then again, as soon as the thing took off, it's like, oh, okay, good. Now this is it. And then at that point, obviously, it becomes way easier to go all in. You're like, all right, everything else we don't care about. You can burn those boats.
Mm,
Now we're on this one ship and we're going to keep building this cruise ship until we can't build it anymore and sell this thing.
Mm.
So that was my personal, approach to it. But I don't
Yeah.
think there's a right or wrong way to do it, honestly. I think it depends on the person, stage of life, responsibilities, that kind of stuff.
Okay, okay. I definitely I like that answer a lot more than what I was thinking about before. I think that makes a lot more sense, depending on your situation and your responsibilities, and basically that's what it depends on. So now moving on, I want to touch on the business, that point of exit. First, I don't know if you can, but could you give us like a ballpark estimate of what you sold the company for?
No, I'm not allowed. I wish I could, but it was way more digits than I ever saw, and it was an amount where I'm very fortunate right now that I can live in a really great place and don't have to work ever again and can do fun stuff and whatever. So it was definitely a lifestyle change, kind of a moment in a big way, where it changed my life. It changed the rest of my life in
Okay,
that one moment.
okay.
So significant, you
Okay,
know?
we're just gonna go off that. Hey, listen, you
Yeah.
gotta make of it what you do, but that's what it is, significant. So, with that, I want to know, like, when did you feel like it was the right time? Like, how did you know that was the right time to sell, or was it the right time to sell?
It was. So selling a business is very personal, especially when it's owned by one person, like Forge 3 was. It was owned by me. Um, so my motivation was I had two things that were really important. The primary reason why I sold when I did was not because we didn't know what to do. It wasn't because sales were slowing. We were on a tear. This thing was going gangbusters. But like I mentioned, I have two kids and I wanted to be around the family more. I wanted to be home, even though we worked from home. We were a remote company. Even before COVID happened, we were remote for that reason. I wanted to be around the kids and just be around and be helpful and that sort of thing. And it was just the perfect storm of all of it. I wanted to be present at home. I wanted to be around the kids and helpful with that. And I also wanted to make sure that my team was in a good spot so they had bigger opportunities going forward. So it was a combination of those two things. It was personal primarily for me, but then it was also like, all right, if that's what we're doing, I need to make sure wherever we go as a company here, wherever it gets sold to, whoever acquires it is going to be a good steward of the business. And it just so happened at that time, I was getting a lot of outreach for it was years, private equity companies reaching out, people in the industry, competitors reaching out, going to trade shows, and then you'd have a bunch of people come up to you and say, "Hey, Jeff, can we get coffee with you? Hey, can we do this? Can we go?" It's like dating, basically. And that started to ramp up, and everything kind of ramped up. It's just like, this feels like it's the right thing for me and for the company and for the team. And yeah, so ultimately, uh, ended up it's going down to out of all those different people and companies that were interested, private equity, strategic acquisitions, competitors, all that, eventually whittled it down to a couple and kind of negotiated a little bit and contemplated different things, met with different options and whatnot, and ultimately decided on one of them for a variety of reasons, and said, okay, yeah, and it was one of those things. It was a tough thing for me to say no to, but they said, all right, well, we want to acquire the company. Great. We want you though, Jeff, to stick around to 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 run it, this combined entity, like this bigger corporation. And again, going back to what I was saying, I love challenges. I love figuring stuff out. I love the sport of it. Yeah, let's do that. But it goes back to the motivation on why I sold in the first place. I didn't sell to get busier. I didn't sell to travel more. I didn't sell to have more challenges and problems and fires to put out and all that kind of stuff. Even though I would enjoy those things, to accomplish those things, my motivation, my North Star at the moment and still today is the family, the kids. So I am not going to do that. So I respectfully decline. Thank you. I'm just going to exit stage left and I'm going to do this thing now. That's going to be the next phase of what I focus on. even more so than I ever have in the past. And so, yeah, that's ended up what I did. The whole team went to the acquiring company. Most of them are still there, doing their thing, and they're growing it. They're on a tear. Reputation is in check. It's great. It's really cool to see the team and the company continue to grow, and clients and the industry continue to appreciate it. It's like your kid goes off and graduates, and like, oh, they're in the real world now. Look at them. I'm so proud of them. Look at how they did. That's kind of how it
Yeah.
is.
One of the things that as you're talking, I just kept thinking about it. I was reading this book a while ago. I'm trying to remember what it was called. Um, Something about CEOs, about like the I think it's like From Good to Great. I think that's
Yep.
the name of
It's a
the book.
classic. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was reading that book, and one of the things that I kept like one of the biggest lessons that I got from that book was the difference between the great CEOs and the good ones. The great ones, if they're not in the room, the company is still working, it's still functioning and at full speed. But the good ones are like the superstars. That's what they call them in the book. That they need to be there. They need to be all hands on deck for it to work out. And I want to know, because from what you've said, the company is still going well. It's still moving. It's still thriving. How are you able to exit in a way where the company is still thriving and is still succeeding?
Sure. So that's a really tricky transition too for a lot of entrepreneurs, going from doing the things, wearing all the hats, to then scaling it to a team where the machine of the business runs the whole thing. So I used to say, when we used to interview potential team members to join the team, I used to always say, we run this place more like Starbucks than we do Jeff's coffee shop or whatever. And what I meant by that was that we have a system, a process, a workflow in place for pretty much everything, which is the work of building a business that scales. It's not fun because you could just as easily say, oh, yeah, I'm just going to do this thing because it's easy. I could be done with that in 30 seconds. But when you're building a company that needs to be scalable, you have to pause and say, all right, I know that's going to take 30 seconds, but that 30 seconds over the next X number of years is going to turn into a bunch of time and potential mistakes and issues and whatever. So let's pause and let's put a workflow around that, or a process or a system, or change something, or whatever. Let's make that better. And then you do. So it's like building a machine. So you add like a little gear for that thing or whatever, right? So now it's a gear. And now you don't have to do it manually every time it pops up. It just does it by itself, let's say. So you do that over and over and over again. And then eventually you start to build this machine where almost all of the exceptions are accounted for. There's always going to be exceptions and fires that pop up, and that's the nature of it. But for the most part, the thing runs. And the side effect of that is that it doesn't require any one person, including me, which is the most important person to work out of a job, is me. So for the last couple of years, I didn't need to do anything to run the company. I was then focused on strategy, issues that would pop up. Where are we going in the next couple of years? What's the strategic decision on what we do with the product? What trade shows are we going to go to? Are there opportunities for me to do speaking engagements or keynote conferences, or those types of things, webinars, and just like you can focus on those things, which is separate from the actual machine running. And that's how you do it, right? So then when companies, if you're building something to sell it, companies are going to look at that very closely. And if they said, oh, well, this only works because one person is doing all of this random stuff. If it was me and I said, oh, and by the way, I want to leave and just spend time with my kids, and I'm out, they're gonna be like, the heck you are? If you leave, the thing's gonna fall apart. You got to stay here, right? Like that's a problem.
Mm.
Or if something happens to that person, whether it's me or anybody else, if they leave the company, or unfortunately if they get sick or whatever, or you always hear, what if I get hit by a bus? It's like, all right, like that is a risk. That's a business risk. And acquiring companies are in the business of analyzing risk and opportunity, and then figuring out what the company is worth based on those two things. So it's really important to, once you have something that can scale, to then build the machine around it to try to pull yourself out of it so that it's almost irrelevant if you're around or not.
Wow.
Starbucks runs if the CEO is there or not.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the CEO changed a bunch of times over the years, and Starbucks still runs. Sure, they have issues and they've struggled a little bit recently and those types of things, but it still runs. You're
Yeah.
still getting your latte when you walk into the store. The whole thing doesn't fall apart. So
Wow.
that was the philosophy that we tried to take into it. And we tried to build it like a Starbucks. Even though we weren't a huge company, we still tried to look at it that way. And it paid off. That's why the valuations and the multiples and all that kind of stuff with this, the sale amount was considerably higher than it otherwise would have been, because
Mm.
we were one of the cleanest companies they've ever seen and one of the most well-run companies. And from the financials to the processes to the workflows to all that stuff was just really on point because we cared about it and we made it like that. So that's how that happens.
And were you doing that with the intention at the back of your mind to sell, or were you just doing that to
Now,
create a system?
just because it was efficient. Yeah,
Mm.
it's like when you're doing something, especially what we were doing, which was over and over, like there were some months where we would sign up 50, 60, I think our highest month was like 60 or something, clients in a month. Well, now that's 60 websites that we have to kind of like create in a month.
Wow.
That's a lot,
Yeah.
right? So the only way to do that, to scale it, is to have some method to the madness. We can't just make it up 60 times. So it was for that purpose. I really didn't contemplate selling until like the last probably 6 to 12 months or something.
Mm.
And then it was like, oh, well, yeah, I guess we do have everything in place that we would like it was, but it was not, I wasn't building it to sell it.
Mm.
I didn't even know what it was worth, honestly.
Wow.
Um, it was built to run it efficiently and to keep growing it. But again, my motivations changed in life, and I had different priorities that I wanted to focus on. So yeah, so that changed.
I see. I see. So is building this system, making that investment, that initial investment, and continuously making that investment to build something that can run on its own, and it can make your workflow more efficient, which could lead to more opportunities, and so on and so forth. So I really do see that. I understand that. I think that's something that even me, as I'm like creating content and as I'm editing and doing all this stuff, it's a system that I'm following. If I'm doing the podcast recording, I know it's a certain thing that I have to do. Like sometimes, like you have that freedom to kind of like pick it and be a bit creative with it, but at the base of it, there's a system that's there. And I think as an entrepreneur, as a person in general, success comes down to systems, and the systems you implement in your personal life, in your uh, social life, every other facets of life. I think my personal opinion is systems. So
Yeah.
I want to know, what is your definition of success?
Hmm. It, in a business sense and a life sense, I think it's, well, in the business sense, I think it's freedom. I
Mm.
think freedom to do what you want, to go where you want, to think about things that you want to think about, to spend time with the people that you care about most. To me, that's what business provided for me and continues to provide for me, is that freedom.
Mm.
And that freedom, again, can be translated into all kinds of things that you want to translate it into, right? And for me, especially in the season that I'm in this transition, I love being able to have the time to just sit with the kids and, yeah, let's go. So where do you want to go? Let's go, you know? Oh, it's not like, oh, well, I'm going to be at a conference, or I have this really, it's tough. I have this work commitment today that I have to do, whatever, you know? It's the freedom to spend time with people and on things that, that I care about, you know, now. So to me, that's what success is. I don't think success is a number. It's not like a dollar amount in the bank. Those that provides the freedom that I'm talking about, but it's not. It's a means to the end. It's not the end. And when I think about what I enjoyed most about the journey thus far, and I'm not done yet. I have more things I want to do. Um, but what I enjoyed the most was actually the grind of it and the
Mm.
hustle of it and the uncertainty of it and the perseverance of it. Like I look back on those things and I'm with fond memories. Like I miss those things. I miss sitting there with like one or two people on my team being like, I don't know what we're going to do here. How are we going to do this? Right. And just like scribbling on the whiteboards and just like brainstorming and trying to figure stuff out, even though the money in the bank was not nearly what it is now. But those are some of the best memories of my life, my business life, you know? So it really is, as cliche as it is, it's the journey that is what's enjoyable. It's not the acquisition day and seeing the money in the bank account and all that. Sure, memorable, but it's also anticlimactic. It's like, okay, like now what do you do?
Yeah.
Right? It's that purpose and that passion that you're doing. Like it's the reason Tom Brady played football. If you win every game, it's not fun anymore. It's the challenge of preparing and executing and trying and getting defeated and then trying again and then winning and then getting defeated and then trying again and winning twice or three times or four times, right? It's that process that
Mm,
draws you into it.
wow.
So I miss elements of that, and that's the part that I want to get back into, not because there's a new dollar amount goal that I have. That's like the scoreboard of
Yeah.
business is
Yeah.
money, which is important and it's fun. There's no doubt. I like money, right? But there's a bigger piece of it too.
100%. 100%. Now, if you and me, God forbid, we're not here tomorrow, what is one piece of advice that you would give to your children?
Treat people well, be kind, um, follow your heart, dream big, uh, bring passion to everything you do, and never give up.
Mm, mm, Love that. Love that. Listen, y'all, this conversation has been amazing. Jeff, for the people who want to reach out to you, want to follow your journey and what it is that you're getting into now, because y'all, it's interesting. I've been looking at his website. I've been low key following a little bit, but it's interesting. Y'all, what do they go to?
Sure. So one of the biggest questions I've gotten the last couple of years, especially since the acquisition, is, well, now what are you going to do? And honestly, the answer is I have no clue what I'm going to do. I don't know. I still don't know what I'm going to do. It's 4 years later. But I said, all right, I'll capture my thinking behind it. So it's at what'snextjeff.com, what'snextjeff.com. So you can go there, and it's a little bit of a brain dump for me right now of things that I've learned looking back, stories like about the acquisition day and things that I've learned, and just some of those things like in the rearview mirror, but also looking forward. What, like, how do I evaluate if there's a business idea that I'd want to jump back into? I call them muses right now. They're just like these ideas. I'm just like mental exercise kind of a thing that I'm doing. With AI right now, it's super cool. Like, so you can do a lot with like technology and like, vibe coding things. And like, wow, that's really fascinating. So that's the place where I'm dumping things slowly. It's not like that's not the business. What'snextjeff.com is not like my new business. It's really just a place for me to dump ideas. So if people are interested, yeah, you can go there and follow along.
Straight up, straight up, straight up. Listen, Jeff, thank you so much for coming on and just dropping these dimes of wisdom. This is like, I know it's gonna change lives. It's changed my life. Just listening to your story and just learning from you it's been amazing. Y'all, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And without further ado, I believe in you. We believe in you. Go and make the world a better place. And remember, don't just live life, but thrive.